I recently purchased a Canon 5D Mark II. Now, why would someone want to buy a camera that was released in 2008? Well, to put it simply, the 5D Mark II is one of the best deals on a used DSLR that I have ever encountered. You can now get a Canon 5D Mark II in perfectly good working condition for $600. Think about that for a second. The Canon 5D Mark II, the camera that was used to take the official portrait of a US president, the camera that was used to film some of the TV show House, one of the most beloved professional workhorse cameras in the history of digital photography, is now as cheap as a T6i with a kit lens from Amazon Prime. Or think about it this way, compare the 5D Mark II to its successor, the 5D Mark III. Now, if you've used both cameras, or honestly, even if you've seen a comparison video between the 5D Mark II and Mark III, you'll know that the 5D Mark III mostly had incremental improvements over the Mark II. There wasn't too much in the way of drastic improvements. So because of that, in use, the two cameras are way more similar than they are different. But here's the thing, the 5D Mark III will still set you back well over $2,000. So if you get a 5D Mark II instead, you're getting nearly 5D Mark III level performance for way less money. Now the camera sounds great when I put it into perspective like that, but what is it specifically about this camera that makes it such a great deal? What is it that this camera has that makes it such a good bargain? And that's a great question, but I think the much more relevant question is, what does the camera not have? What modern features do you have to sacrifice in order to get a full-frame camera for the price of a modern beginner camera? Now, for the past few years, if you were to spend less than $700 on a full-frame camera or a professional camera or whatever, you'd end up with something like a 5D Mark I or maybe one of Canon's 1D cameras. We're sure you get the better build quality, extra dials, bigger sensor, whatever, but you'd be sacrificing some of the major modern amenities. Those cameras would have often ancient connectivity options, the screens would seem like they're right off a Game Boy Advance, but I think most importantly, those cameras wouldn't have any video modes whatsoever. And as you know, ever since the 5D Mark II came out, the video mode has been one of the most important things on DSLRs. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, well, I don't care about video mode. I just want to look through the viewfinder and take pictures, just like how it was in the film era. And to that I say, sure, fine. You may not want to take videos, but the fact is you are still objectively making a sacrifice. If you were to have bought one of those old professional cameras, you were making a tangible trade-off. You were choosing to not have video mode and not have that serious creative tool in order to be able to have the full-frame sensor or the professional features for that low price. But what about the 5D Mark II? What's the trade-off for this camera? And honestly, nothing really much. And that's the reason that makes it such a good deal. When I use this camera today, I don't feel impeded by the fact that it's old. I don't feel like I wish I was using a newer camera. It really does everything I need it to do. Obviously, it's a full-frame DSLR, so it has a fantastic still photography mode, but this is the 5D Mark II, one of the most famous digital video cameras ever. And the video mode is still great on this. It has everything you need. It has fully manual video with fully manual audio and a microphone input, so no matter what sort of video you're doing, this will be able to do it great. So if you think about the few things this camera doesn't have that newer cameras do have, it's stuff like GPS tracking, touchscreen menus, video modes that have such high resolution and frame rate that they fill up your memory card in 3 minutes, more autofocus points than there are countries in the UN, and so on and so forth. And here's the thing, I don't need those things. I don't want those things, because the thing is, those aren't creative tools. Those aren't vehicles with which I could further express myself through the visual arts. They're just gadgets. They're just toys, If I were to have those features, nothing about my photography or videography would actually be better. All it does is just make the camera itself more expensive. So I don't need or want any of the features that are on newer professional cameras. When I use my 5D Mark II, it feels completely up to date to me. At no point when I'm using this camera do I wish I had something newer or something with more technological advancements. No, it does everything I need and everything I want exactly how I need it done. And for the price of a beginner camera. And I think that's ultimately the reason this camera is such an incredible deal. Because you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting a camera that is still a fully competent professional camera for the price of a low-end beginner camera. And you really can't beat a deal like that. Now, I've been mentioning the price of $600 throughout this video, and that seems kind of arbitrary. Where do I get the price of $600 from? And here's the thing, there are Canon 5D Mark IIs for sale that are cheaper than $600, but you really don't want those. Those are the sort of cameras that are on the border of used and as is, so those aren't going to be in very good condition. They're going to have extremely high shutter counts and so on and so forth. But on the other hand too, if you're to start spending more than $700 on a used 5D Mark II, Well, those aren't actually going to be in any better working condition than a $600 example. Those are just going to be in, slightly better cosmetic example. They may have a few less dings or scratches on the outside. Chances are, if you've got this far in the video, you probably don't care about a couple of scratches on the side of your camera. So to kind of sum everything up, with the 5D Mark II, you're getting a camera that really has no major downsides. The only things this camera doesn't have are the things that don't actually enhance your creative abilities. A lot of people say that older cameras have everything you need. This is the camera that actually has everything you need. So if you have a budget of $600 for a camera, I simply cannot recommend any other option than the 5D Mark II.